Good evening, old school Texas Tech. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm continuing with my final scorecard, final grades for conference opponents, and I'll probably just kind of continue throughout college football into some other teams as well, especially some of the teams I did early season predictions for, and also some teams we might possibly play in bowl games, and then whoever else I decide to do these final grades for. Anyway, I'm focusing on a conference opponent. We didn't play them this year, but we did play them last year, and that is University of Central Florida. Last year, they came into the conference extremely impressive. They actually made a bowl game their first year in the Big 12. They played us a really tough game out in Lubbock. I think a lot of us were like, after that game, and then just other Big 12 fans were like, "Oh, we're glad to have them in the conference. We think this is a good pickup for the Big 12, but they're also kind of scary because they're in a recruiting hotbed in Central Florida. It's a huge university. I've actually been very close to the campus, just on the outskirts, and I know that it's definitely a program that has enormous potential. So this year, I just kind of watched from afar since we didn't play them. Just kind of kept an eye on them as we were looking at other conference opponents. But they started off three in a row, won a couple of non-conference games early, kind of blew out some teams, and then went on the road to Fort Worth and beat TCU by a point. And they started off the season looking good. Then they lost to Colorado as Colorado was starting to get hot. I was surprised a little bit at the margin of the score. I guess at that point I was surprised at the margin of the score, not a little bit. I was surprised. They got blown out by Colorado at home, and then they lost to Florida on the road, which Florida's a pretty good team this year. So there's really no shame in either of those losses. But then after that, it started to get a little crazy. They were playing Cincinnati at home. The quarterback transfer from Arkansas, KJ Jefferson, is benched during the game, and it really kind of went south after that. They went on to lose a close one in Ames with the quarterback that had transferred in from Miami. But then after that, minus a win against Arizona, who obviously did not have a good year this year. They lost out, lost the rest of their games, and they ended up 4-8 on the season. Went from losing a bowl game to Georgia Tech and making a bowl game their first year in a Power Four, or would have been a Power Five conference last year, but a Power Four conference. Went from losing a bowl game to Georgia Tech last year to only winning two conference games this year. So obviously, expectations were not met. So just for their grade for the season, I would give them a D minus. They were definitely expected to kind of be the bottom of the first tier of the conference, sort of like fourth place finish kind of thing, to somewhere in the second tier if you looked at most of the early season predictions from what I remember. So I would say very disappointing season, D minus. On top of that, their head coach, Gus Malzahn, a highly respected coach in college football, decided to leave and take the offensive coordinator position at Florida State. So now they have got a coaching search going on, and it already seems to like it's going to be a pretty wild coaching search. A lot of people interested in this job for obvious reasons. It's a growing university. It's a growing brand. They're in a Power Four conference now. So you're hearing names, everything from today. Even heard Lincoln Riley rumor. I have no idea how true that is. I know that he's had a disappointing start at USC. I've heard Scott Frost. I've heard Jim Mora. There was one list I found online that had like 18 names. So there's a lot of people interested in this job. It'll be interesting to see which direction UCF goes. But a disappointing season for those guys. I have a feeling that just given their location, that they're going to get some positive momentum back relatively soon. But this is a competitive conference, and as we can tell, a lot of these games are coming down to one possession type games. So we'll see how long it takes them to kind of get their feet back on the ground. But disappointing season for UCF. I give them a D minus, but their future is going to be very interesting.